May 5, 1945. Shortly after dawn. The Maeda Escarpment, Okinawa. Private First Class Desmond Doss lies flat on his stomach at the edge of a 400-foot cliff, peering down into the smoke and chaos below. Behind him, spread across the rocky plateau, 75 American soldiers lie bleeding, broken, and dying. Japanese machine guns are still firing, mortar rounds are still falling. Every other American has retreated down the cargo nets following orders. Desmond Doss is the only one who stayed. He has no weapon, no rifle, no pistol, no knife. Nothing but a medical kit, a canteen, and a small Bible his wife gave him before he shipped out. The men lying wounded behind him are the same men who threw boots at his head while he prayed. The same men who called him a coward, a weakling, a liability who would get them all killed. The same men whose commanding officer tried to have him declared mentally unfit and discharged from the army. Now they are calling his name, pleading for help, bleeding into the volcanic soil of an island most of them had never heard of 6 months ago. And Desmond Doss, the soldier who refused to carry a gun, is the only one who can save them. What happens over the next 12 hours will defy every law of probability. One man, unarmed under constant enemy fire, will drag 75 wounded soldiers to the edge of that cliff and lower them to safety using a rope and a knot he discovered by accident during training. Each time he sends another man down into the waiting hands below, he whispers the same prayer. Lord, please help me get just one more. By morning, Desmond Doss will become the first conscientious objector in American history to receive the Medal of Honor, not for killing, for saving. And every man who once called him a coward will spend the rest of their lives telling anyone who would listen about the night a skinny medic from Virginia proved them all wrong. Desmond Thomas Doss was born February 7th, 1919, in Lynchburg, Virginia, a small city nestled in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, known for its tobacco warehouses and textile mills. The James River ran through town, powering the factories that kept the economy alive. It was a working-class city, a place where men earned their living with their hands and passed that ethic down to their sons. His father, William Thomas Doss, was a carpenter who struggled to find steady work. The family had seen hard times even before the Depression hit. William worked when he could find jobs. When carpentry dried up, he took work at a local shoe factory. He drank when times were hard, which was often. The invisible wounds of his generation, the struggles that had no name back then, manifested in ways that scarred the family. His mother, Bertha, was a deeply religious woman who held the family together through faith and determination. She also worked at the Craddock Terry Shoe Factory to help make ends meet. She raised her 3 children in the Seventh-day Adventist faith, taking them every Saturday to the Park Avenue Seventh-day Adventist Church. The Adventists were a small Protestant denomination with distinctive beliefs. They observed the Sabbath on Saturday rather than Sunday. They practiced vegetarianism, and they took the 10 Commandments with absolute seriousness, treating them not as guidelines or suggestions but as the literal word of God. The Doss family was not wealthy. The Great Depression hit Lynchburg hard, and what little work William could find barely kept the family fed. By the time Desmond finished his first year of high school, he had to leave to help support the family. He found work at the Lynchburg Lumber Company, hauling boards and learning the trade that would have been his inheritance if the world had been different. But something had already taken root in young Desmond's mind, something that would shape the trajectory of his entire life. In the Doss family home hung a large, framed poster that William had purchased at an auction years before. It displayed the 10 Commandments in bold letters, each one accompanied by a colorful illustration depicting its meaning. The children would study these pictures during family devotions, memorizing the commandments and understanding their implications. The illustration for the 6th commandment captured Desmond's attention more than any other, "Thou shalt not kill." The picture showed the story from Genesis, the first murder in human history. Cain standing over the body of his brother Abel, a club still raised in his hand, having just killed his own flesh and blood out of jealousy and rage. The expression on Kane's face was terrible. The stillness of Abel's body was worse. Desmond would stare at that picture for long minutes at a time, trying to understand. How could a brother kill his own brother? What kind of darkness lived inside a man that could make him do such a thing? The question haunted him. His own brother Harold was his best friend, his constant companion. The thought of raising a hand against him was incomprehensible. Yet Kane had done it, and according to the Bible, that violence had echoed through all of human history ever since. Years later, Desmond would say of that image to me, it said, "Desmond, if you love me, you will not kill." The picture burned itself into his memory. He made a private vow, there in his childhood home, standing before that poster with its terrible illustration. He would never take another human life. Not for any reason. Not under any circumstances, not ever. That conviction was tested sooner than he expected. One afternoon, William Doss and his brother-in-law got into a heated argument. Both men had been drinking. Tempers flared. Words were exchanged that could not be taken back. Then William pulled out a pistol and aimed it at his wife's brother. Desmond watched in horror. The scene was unfolding exactly like the picture on the wall. Violence about to claim. Another victim. His mother stepped between the two men, placing her body in the line of fire, talking to William in a calm voice, pleading with him to put down the gun. Somehow, miraculously, it worked. William handed over the pistol. Bertha gave it to young Desmond to hide. The police were called. William was arrested. No one was hurt. But Desmond had seen something that changed him. He had seen how close his father came to becoming Kane. He had seen the look in his father's eyes, the same look he imagined on Kane's face in that picture. He understood now that the capacity for violence lived inside everyone, inside his father, inside himself. The only defense against it was a conscious choice, a vow so strong that nothing could break it. Desmond Doss decided that day that he would never touch a gun again, not to threaten, not to defend, not for any reason. His hands would be used to help, to heal, to build, never to destroy. December 7th, 1941, a Sunday morning in Hawaii that would change the world. Japanese aircraft sweep down from the clouds over Pearl Harbor, catching the American Pacific Fleet at anchor. Within 2 hours, 8 battleships are sunk or damaged. Nearly 2,400 Americans are dead. The United States, which had remained neutral while war consumed Europe and Asia, is neutral no longer. The news reaches Lynchburg by radio. Desmond Doss, now 22 years old, listens with the rest of America as President Franklin Roosevelt addresses Congress and asks for a declaration of war, a date which will live in infamy. Within hours, America is at war with Japan. Within days, Germany and Italy declare war on America. The country that had tried to stay out of the conflict is now fighting on 2 fronts against 3 of the most powerful militaries on earth. Across the nation, young men flood recruiting stations. Patriotism surges through every town and city. Brothers sign up together. Fathers see their sons off to training. Camps. The entire country mobilizes for total war. Desmond feels that surge of patriotism too. His friends are enlisting. His brother Harold joins the Navy. The country that gave him freedom, that allowed him to worship as he pleased and live according to his beliefs, is under attack. Desmond had been working at the Newport News Naval Shipyard in Virginia since March of 1941, helping to build the warships that would carry American forces across the Pacific. It was essential war work, the kind of job that qualified him for a military deferment. He could sit out the entire war, contributing to the effort from a safe factory floor while other men fight and die on distant islands. But Desmond cannot do that. It feels like cowardice. It feels like hiding while others sacrifice. He wants to serve. He wants to stand with his countrymen. He wants to do his duty. He just cannot kill. The Army has a provision for men like Desmond. The Selective Training and Service Act of 1940 allows conscientious objectors to serve in non-combatant positions. They can contribute to the war effort without bearing arms. Many become medics, chaplains, or support personnel. They wear the uniform and share the danger without carrying weapons. On April 1, 1942, Desmond Doss is inducted into the United States Army at Camp Lee, Virginia. He requests assignment to the Medical Corps as a combat medic. He explains his religious beliefs, his refusal to carry a weapon, his willingness to serve in any other capacity. The Army, desperate for manpower as it expands from a peacetime force to a wartime juggernaut, agrees to let him serve as a non-combatant. Desmond hates the term conscientious objector. It sounds like he is objecting to the war, refusing to participate, sitting on the sidelines while others fight. He prefers to call himself a conscientious cooperator. He is not objecting to anything. He is cooperating with the war effort in the way his conscience allows. He will go where the Army sends him. He will serve alongside fighting men in combat. He will share every danger except one. He will not kill. 4 months later, on August 17, 1942, Desmond marries Dorothy Schutte. They had met at their Seventh-day Adventist church in Lynchburg and fallen in love. Dorothy gives him a small Bible as a wedding gift, one he will carry through every battle that follows. They have only a brief time together before Desmond ships out to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, for basic training with the newly reactivated 77th Infantry Division. From the first day at Fort Jackson, Desmond Doss becomes a target. The Army is a culture built on conformity. Everyone wears the same uniform. Everyone follows the same orders. Everyone carries a rifle and learns to use it. A soldier who refuses to conform stands out like a beacon, inviting scrutiny and suspicion. Desmond is undersized compared to most recruits, with a soft Virginia accent and a gentle demeanor that some mistake for weakness. He looks like easy prey to the hard men around him. When the other soldiers learn that he refuses to carry a rifle, they assume he is a coward using religion as an excuse. When they learn he refuses to work or train on Saturdays, observing the Seventh-day Adventist Sabbath, they assume he is trying to get out of doing his fair share of the work. The harassment begins immediately. Verbal abuse at first, jokes muttered just loud enough for Desmond to hear, insults tossed his way in the barracks, soldiers calling him a Bible thumper, a holy roller, a weakling playing soldier. They call him a liability who would get them all killed when the shooting started. They call him a coward hiding behind God. Then it escalates. Boots thrown at his head while he kneels beside his bunk to pray at night, his personal belongings scattered or hidden, threats shouted across the barracks in the darkness. One soldier looks him directly in the eye and makes a promise. Doss, as soon as we get into combat, I will make sure you will not come back alive. Desmond does not respond to the threats. He does not fight back. He continues to pray, to attend to his duties, to be the soldier he believes he is called to be. What his tormentors do not realize is that Desmond volunteers for extra duty on Sundays when the other men have passes to go into town. He makes up every hour he misses on the Sabbath, working double shifts while his tormentors are at the movies or the bars. But all they see is the skinny kid from Virginia getting special treatment. The officers are no better than the enlisted men. Captain Jack Glover, the company commander, considers Doss a menace to unit cohesion. A soldier who refuses to carry a rifle cannot be trusted to protect his comrades in combat. A soldier who will not train on Saturdays undermines discipline and invites others to seek their own exemptions. Glover goes to the battalion commander, Colonel Gerald Cooney, and formally requests that Doss be transferred out of his company. In his opinion, Doss should not be in the Army at all. When the transfer request goes nowhere, Glover and the other officers try a different approach. They attempt to have Doss discharged under Section 8, the regulation that allows the Army to release soldiers who are mentally unfit for service. Their argument is simple. A soldier who refuses to carry a weapon in wartime must be mentally ill. No sane man would handicap himself that way. A hearing is convened. Desmond stands before a board of officers who will decide his fate. They ask him to explain his beliefs, to justify his refusal to bear arms. Desmond speaks calmly and clearly. He explains his faith, his upbringing, the picture of Cain and Abel that shaped his conscience. He explains that he wants to serve, that he is willing to go into combat, that he will share every danger with his fellow soldiers. He simply will not kill. The officers press him. Will he accept a discharge on mental health grounds? It would be easy. He could go home, return to his job at the shipyard, avoid all the trouble that is surely coming. Desmond refuses. I would be a very poor Christian, he tells the board, if I accepted a discharge implying that I was mentally off because of my religion. I am sorry, gentlemen, but I cannot accept that kind of discharge. The Section 8 attempt fails. The board cannot find evidence of mental illness. Religious conviction, however unusual, is not the same as insanity. Desmond Doss remains in the army. Then comes the court-martial threat. An officer named Captain Cunningham has been watching Doss with particular disgust. When the company begins weapons qualification, every soldier is required to demonstrate proficiency with the M1 rifle. Completion of rifle training is required for passers to leave the base. Cunningham confronts Doss in front of the entire company. He knows that Doss's file contains an exemption from weapons training. He does not care. He forces a rifle into Doss's hands, pressing it against his chest. Take this rifle, Cunningham orders. Complete the qualification like everyone else, or you will be court-martialed for disobeying a direct order. The entire company is watching. Dozens of soldiers who already despise this Bible-reading oddity, who thinks he is better than them. Cunningham is giving Doss a choice: compromise his beliefs or face military justice. Desmond lets the rifle fall to the ground. He will not touch it, not even to avoid punishment. Cunningham begins threatening a court-martial immediately, but before the process goes further, another officer intervenes. He has seen Doss's file. He knows the exemption is real and legally binding. Cunningham relents and gives Doss the pass, but it does not stop him from continuing to make Doss's life miserable. Doss endures it all. He completes every physical requirement of basic training. He runs every mile, does every push-up, climbs every obstacle. He learns first aid, wound treatment, and evacuation procedures. He becomes an expert in the skills a combat medic needs to save lives on the battlefield. He just will not touch a gun. And he will not work on Saturday. In 1944, the 77th Infantry Division completes training and ships out for the Pacific Theater. Their first combat deployment is the invasion of Guam in July. The island had been an American territory before the war, captured by Japan in the days after Pearl Harbor. Now the Americans are coming back. Guam is held by thousands of Japanese troops who have had more than 2 years to dig in and fortify their positions. The fighting is brutal, close-quarters jungle warfare at its worst. The Japanese do not surrender. They fight to the death in caves and bunkers that have to be cleared one by one with grenades and flamethrowers. American casualties mount day after day. The men who threaten to kill Doss discover something unexpected. Their Bible-reading medic is not a coward. He is the opposite of everything they assumed. When soldiers fall wounded, Doss runs to them under fire. He does not hesitate. He does not wait for the shooting to stop. He does not seek cover while men bleed out calling for help. He exposes himself to enemy bullets again and again to drag injured soldiers to safety and treat their wounds. On one occasion, a wounded soldier lies in an exposed position, pinned down by Japanese fire. No one will go to him. The risk is too great. Doss goes anyway, crawling across open ground while bullets tear up the earth around him. He reaches the man, applies a tourniquet to stop the bleeding, and drags him back to cover. The soldier survives. His comrades begin to see Doss differently. The Japanese specifically target medics. Killing a medic demoralizes an entire unit. It leaves the wounded without care, causes healthy soldiers to think twice about advancing if they know no one will help them if they fall. Medics are high-value targets, and Doss knows it. He treats men anyway, crawling across open ground, bandaging wounds while bullets snap past his head. By the end of the Guam campaign, Desmond Doss has earned a Bronze Star for Valor, the 4th highest military decoration for bravery. The men who called him a liability are starting to reconsider their assessment. After Guam, the 77th lands on Leyte in the Philippines on November 23, 1944. More jungle combat, more wounded soldiers needing evacuation under fire, more opportunities for Doss to prove what he is made of. He rescues wounded men from exposed positions, treating their injuries while enemy fire kicks up dirt around him. He earns a second Bronze Star. The medic who would not carry a gun has now been decorated twice for courage under fire. The men of Company B watch Doss closely now. They see him run into danger over and over, risking his life to save theirs. They see him work through exhaustion and fear, never asking for recognition, never complaining about the treatment he endured in training. Something has shifted. The hatred has faded. Respect has taken its place. The soldiers who once mocked him now nod when they pass him in camp. The ones who threatened to kill him now trust him with their lives. They have learned that courage comes in different forms, and they have learned to stop underestimating the quiet man from Virginia. But they have not seen anything yet. April 1945. The Battle of Okinawa begins. It is the largest amphibious assault of the Pacific War, an operation so massive it dwarfs everything that came before. More than 180,000 American soldiers and Marines will participate. Over 1,200 ships will support the invasion. It will become one of the bloodiest battles in American military history, a preview of what an invasion of the Japanese home islands might cost. Okinawa is just 340 miles from mainland Japan. Taking it will provide airfields for long-range bombers and staging grounds for the planned invasion that military planners believe will end the war. The Japanese understand this. They are determined to make the Americans pay for every inch of ground, to inflict such terrible casualties that America will agree to negotiate rather than continue the slaughter. The island is defended by over 100,000 Japanese troops entrenched in a network of caves, tunnels, and fortified positions that have been prepared over years. The terrain is a nightmare of ridges, escarpments, and natural fortresses. Every hill has been turned into a defensive position. Every cave has been expanded into a bunker. The Japanese commander, Lieutenant General Mitsuru Ushijima, has no intention of meeting the Americans on the beaches where American naval firepower would destroy his forces. Instead, he has created a defense in depth, forcing the Americans to fight for every ridge and gully across the length of the island. The weather is worse than the terrain. Monsoon rains turn the ground to mud and make every movement exhausting. Tanks bog down. Supply vehicles cannot reach the front. Soldiers fight in conditions that would be miserable even without the enemy trying to kill them. Offshore, kamikaze suicide planes devastate the American fleet, sinking ships and killing sailors by the thousands. The Japanese call it the Typhoon of Steel. The fighting will last 82 days and cost more than 49,000 American casualties, including over 12,000 dead. It will be the costliest battle of the Pacific War for American forces. The 77th Division lands on Okinawa in late April, after helping secure the Kerama Islands to the west. On April 28th, they relieve the exhausted 96th Infantry Division and move into position near the Maeda Escarpment, a massive ridge that dominates the surrounding terrain. The Americans have given it a name that captures its deadly nature: Hacksaw Ridge. The escarpment rises roughly 400 feet from the valley floor. The final 35 feet are a sheer cliff face, impossible to climb without cargo nets or ropes. At the top is a plateau honeycombed with Japanese tunnels, caves, and fortified gun positions. The defenders have had years to prepare these positions. Every approach is covered by interlocking fields of fire from multiple directions. Machine guns are positioned to create kill zones. Mortars are pre-registered on likely American routes. On May 2nd, Companies A and B climb the cargo nets to assault the plateau. Desmond Doss climbs with them, his medical kit slung around his neck, no weapon of any kind on his body. He has removed the Red Cross insignia that normally identifies American medics. The Japanese have learned to target medical personnel specifically, and Doss knows that wearing the symbol would paint a target on his back. Company A is nearly wiped out in the initial attack. The Japanese defenses are even stronger than intelligence suggested. Soldiers are cut down by machine gun fire before they can reach cover. The survivors join what remains of Company B for another push. For several days the fighting grinds on in a brutal stalemate. The Americans gain ground yard by yard, losing men with every advance. Doss treats wounded soldiers constantly, crawling across open ground to reach them, dragging them to positions where they can receive further care. On May 4th, he rescues a wounded man 200 yards in front of the American lines, deep in territory still contested by Japanese defenders. On May 5th, he treats 4 soldiers who were cut down while assaulting a cave position, advancing to within 8 yards of the cave mouth through a shower of Japanese grenades to reach them and dress their wounds. Then everything falls apart. On the morning of May 5, 1945, the Japanese launch a massive counterattack. They have been holding back reserves, waiting for the right moment to strike. Artillery barrages saturate the American positions. Mortars drop from the sky in waves. Machine guns open up from concealed positions. The assault is overwhelming. The order comes down to retreat. The American position on the plateau is untenable. Staying means annihilation. The soldiers begin scrambling back toward the cargo nets, desperate to get off the exposed ground and down to safety. Within minutes, the Americans have been driven from the top of Hacksaw Ridge, but not all of them. Approximately 75 wounded soldiers remain on the plateau, too badly injured to retreat under their own power. They lie scattered across the rocky volcanic soil, bleeding, calling for help, trying to crawl toward safety with shattered limbs. Every able-bodied American has climbed down the nets or been killed in the counterattack. The Japanese are advancing systematically across the plateau, finishing off any wounded they find. Desmond Doss refuses to leave. He hears the orders to retreat. He understands the danger. He knows that staying on this plateau means almost certain death. The Japanese do not take prisoners. They kill the wounded. A lone American medic with no weapon has no chance against the enemy soldiers sweeping across the position. But Desmond cannot abandon these men. They are his responsibility, his brothers, the soldiers he swore to protect when he put on the uniform. Leaving them here to die is not something he can do. He does not know how he will save them. He only knows that he must try. One by one, Doss crawls to the wounded. He moves slowly, staying low, using every scrap of cover the terrain provides. Japanese soldiers are everywhere, but they are focused on pursuing the retreating Americans, not searching for lone medics hiding among the rocks. Doss reaches the first wounded man and begins treatment, bandages, pressure on the wounds, morphine if the pain is too severe. Then he grabs the man and begins dragging him toward the cliff edge. Getting the wounded down will be the challenge. A wounded man cannot climb down a cargo net. Many of them cannot move at all. Doss needs another way to lower them to safety. A thought comes to him. A memory from his training, something he had stumbled upon by accident. He had been practicing knots and tied a standard bowline incorrectly, creating 2 loops instead of 1. A double bowline. Now, under enemy fire on a plateau covered with dying men, that accidental discovery becomes the tool that will save their lives. He can put a man's legs through the loops, 1 leg in each. Then he can wrap the rope around the man's chest and lower him down the cliff face. The knot will hold. The wounded soldier will reach the hands waiting below, and Doss will pull up the rope and go back for another. He ties the first knot, tests it, wraps it around the first wounded man, begins lowering him over the edge of the escarpment, 35 feet of sheer cliff face with American soldiers waiting at the bottom. The rope holds. The wounded man descends slowly, carefully, until hands grab him and pull him to safety. Doss pulls up the rope, goes back into the killing ground, finds another wounded soldier, treats his wounds, drags him to the cliff, ties the knot, lowers him down. He repeats this process over and over through the afternoon and into the night, crawling to find the wounded, treating their injuries, dragging them to the cliff edge, lowering them one by one on his improvised rope sling. Each time he sends another man down, the same prayer escapes his lips. Lord, please help me get just one more. The Japanese do not stop firing. Bullets crack past his head. Mortar rounds explode nearby, showering him with dirt and rock fragments. Several times enemy soldiers pass close enough that Doss can hear their voices, their footsteps, their equipment rattling as they move. He lies motionless until they pass, then resumes his work. The hours blur together. The sun sets. Darkness falls over the plateau, but the killing does not stop. Japanese flares illuminate the battlefield in harsh white light. Machine guns continue their deadly chatter. Doss continues his work. Just one more. Just one more. Just one more. By dawn, Desmond Doss has lowered 75 wounded soldiers off Hacksaw Ridge, 75 men who would have been killed by the Japanese counterattack, 75 men who owe their lives to a soldier who refused to carry a gun. He himself later said he did not want to claim the full number. All I want to say is I was just thankful that the Lord was able to use me. When the sun rises on May 6th, the Americans below the cliff cannot believe what they are seeing. Wounded men have been appearing at the bottom of the cargo nets all night, lowered one by one on a rope by some unseen rescuer at the top. No one could survive up there. No one could operate in the middle of a Japanese-occupied position for 12 hours without being killed. But someone did. Among the men Doss saved is Captain Jack Glover, the same officer who tried to have him transferred out of the company, the same man who considered him a liability. Glover was wounded in the counterattack and left behind when the retreat came. He lay on that plateau waiting to die. Then Desmond Doss appeared, treated his wounds and lowered him to safety. Glover will later say of Doss he was one of the bravest persons alive. And then to have him end up saving my life was the irony of the whole thing. But Desmond Doss is not finished on Okinawa. The fighting continues for weeks after Hacksaw Ridge. The Japanese are pushed back slowly, ridge by ridge, cave by cave. The casualties mount on both sides. Doss continues treating the wounded, continues running into fire to save men who cannot save themselves. On May 21st, during a night attack near Shuri, Doss is treating wounded soldiers when a Japanese grenade lands near him. He tries to kick it away. The grenade explodes, driving shrapnel into his legs and hip. The pain is immediate and terrible. Standard procedure when a medic is wounded is to call for another medic. Doss refuses. Calling for help would expose another man to danger. Instead, he treats his own wounds as best he can, bandaging the shrapnel injuries, and waits. He waits 5 hours before litter bearers finally reach his position. As the bearers lift him onto the stretcher and begin carrying him toward the aid station, Doss sees another soldier lying nearby. The man is more badly wounded than Doss. He might not survive the wait for another stretcher. Doss rolls off the litter. He tells the bearers to take the other man first. He will wait. While waiting for the bearers to return, a Japanese sniper spots movement. A bullet tears through Doss's left arm, shattering the bone below the elbow. The pain is excruciating. His arm is useless, broken in multiple places. Doss looks around for something to use as a splint. He sees a rifle lying nearby, dropped by a wounded soldier. He picks it up. Not to shoot, he has never fired a weapon and never will. He uses the rifle stock as a splint, binding it to his shattered arm with bandages. Then he begins crawling. 300 yards of rough, rocky, battle-scarred terrain between him and the aid station. He cannot walk. He can barely move. But he crawls, inch by inch, yard by yard, until he finally reaches medical care. The wounds end his time in combat. Desmond Doss is evacuated to the hospital ship USS Mercy on May 21, 1945. He has served through the worst of the Okinawa campaign. He has saved countless lives. And his body has paid a terrible price. During his treatment and transport, a mistake is made that will devastate his family. The confusion of combat, the chaos of evacuating thousands of wounded soldiers leads to an administrative error. Desmond Doss is reported dead. The news is transmitted through official channels. reaching the War Department and then his hometown. It appears in the newspaper in Lynchburg, Virginia. Desmond Doss, decorated combat medic, has been killed in action on Okinawa. His family believes their son, husband, brother is dead. Doss discovers the error when he regains consciousness in the hospital. He immediately writes a letter to his mother, proving that he is very much alive. The confusion is eventually sorted out, the records corrected. But for his family, those terrible hours of believing he was gone will never be forgotten. The physical damage is real and permanent. 17 pieces of shrapnel embedded in his body from when he tried to kick that grenade away from his comrades. A shattered arm that will never fully heal. And something worse waiting inside him. During those cold, wet nights in the Pacific, sleeping in muddy foxholes on tropical islands, never getting enough rest, Desmond Doss contracted tuberculosis. October 12, 1945. The White House, Washington, D.C. President Harry Truman stands on the lawn, surrounded by military brass, photographers, and family members of the honorees. He is about to present the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration the United States can bestow, to a group of soldiers who distinguished themselves in combat. Among them is a medic from Virginia with his arm still in a sling. Desmond Doss stands at attention while President Truman reads the citation describing his actions on Hacksaw Ridge. The words capture what happened in official military language, but they cannot fully convey what it meant. One man, alone, unarmed, saving 75 lives through a night of horror. Truman places the Medal of Honor around Desmond Doss's neck. Doss becomes the first conscientious objector in American history to receive the nation's highest military decoration. The man who refused to carry a gun has been recognized for courage beyond anything his armed comrades could achieve. President Truman tells Doss, "I am proud of you. You really deserve this. I consider this a greater honor than being president." In addition to the Medal of Honor, Desmond Doss receives 2 Bronze Stars for valor, one for Guam and one for Leyte, 3 Purple Hearts for his wounds. The Presidential Unit Citation awarded to his battalion for securing the Maeda Escarpment. Desmond Doss returns home as one of the most decorated medics of the Second World War, all without ever firing a shot. The war is over. Desmond Doss goes back to Virginia, back to the quiet life he always wanted. But peace does not mean healing. The tuberculosis he contracted in the Pacific progresses relentlessly through his body. He spends the next 5.5 years in and out of hospitals, fighting an enemy that no weapon can defeat. The disease claims his left lung. Surgeons remove it along with 5 ribs, trying to stop the spread of infection. The operation saves his life but leaves him permanently disabled. For the rest of his days, Desmond Doss will survive on a single lung, always short of breath, always aware of what the war took from him. He had hoped to return to carpentry after the fighting ended, to work with his hands like his father, to build things instead of patching broken bodies. The damage to his arm and the loss of his lung make that impossible. He is discharged from the army in August of 1951 with a 90% disability rating. He will never be able to work a regular job again. But Desmond Doss does not fade into bitterness. He returns to his community, to his church, to the faith that sustained him through everything. He and Dorothy raised their son, Desmond Jr., on a small farm in Rising Fawn, Georgia. They live modestly on his military pension, grateful for each day together. The boy will grow up to serve as an army medic himself, then become a firefighter and paramedic, carrying on his father's legacy of saving lives. He never seeks fame. He never writes a book about his experiences. He declines offers to profit from his story. When people ask about Hacksaw Ridge, about the 75 men, about the prayer he whispered over and over in the darkness, he deflects with characteristic humility. "I just did what I felt was right. I was just doing my duty." He gives credit to God, not to himself. He speaks of the men who died, not the medals he received, but others remember. In 1962, on the 100th anniversary of the Medal of Honor's creation during the Civil War, the other living recipients select Desmond Doss to represent them all at a White House ceremony. He meets President John F. Kennedy, another veteran, another man who understood what service and sacrifice meant. Doss remains active in his church throughout his life. He teaches young people the double bowline knot he discovered by accident, showing them how a simple skill can become a tool for extraordinary good. He becomes a symbol not of violence but of something different. Courage without killing, service without weapons, faith strong enough to withstand ridicule, persecution, and enemy fire. In 1976, an overdose of antibiotics causes Doss to go completely deaf. His disability rating increases to 100%. In 1988, he receives a cochlear implant that partially restores his hearing. On November 17, 1991, tragedy strikes. Dorothy is in the car with Desmond, who is driving her to the hospital for treatment of breast cancer. There is an accident. Dorothy dies from her injuries. They had been married for 49 years. On July 1, 1993, Desmond marries Frances May Duman, who cares for him in his final years. She will later write his biography, helping to preserve his story for future generations. March 23, 2006. Piedmont, Alabama. Desmond Thomas Doss dies at the age of 87. His single remaining lung, battered by decades of strain and illness, finally gives out. He is buried on April 3rd at Chattanooga National Cemetery in Tennessee, among the heroes of every American war. His grave marked with a simple stone bearing his name, his rank, and the notation that he received the Medal of Honor. In 2016, his story reaches a new generation. The film Hacksaw Ridge, directed by Mel Gibson and starring Andrew Garfield as Desmond Doss, brings the medic from Virginia to screens around the world. Garfield receives an Oscar nomination for his portrayal. Millions of people learn for the first time about the soldier who saved 75 men without firing a shot. What does the story of Desmond Doss tell us about courage, about faith, about what one person can accomplish when they refuse to compromise their deepest beliefs? It tells us that courage is not about weapons. It is not about killing. Courage is staying when everyone else runs. Courage is crawling through gunfire to reach a wounded man because you cannot leave him behind. Courage is holding to your convictions even when your own brothers in arms call you a coward and mock you for your beliefs. The men of Company B went to war believing that a soldier without a rifle was worthless, a burden, a liability waiting to get good men killed. They learned something different on Hacksaw Ridge. They learned that the man they despised was willing to die for them. They learned that conviction, real conviction, the kind that cannot be shaken by threats or overwhelming odds, is the most powerful force on any battlefield. Desmond Doss did not ask anyone to agree with his beliefs. He did not lecture or preach. He simply lived his faith every single day in every situation, regardless of what it cost him. And when the moment came when 75 men lay dying on a plateau crawling with enemy soldiers, Desmond Doss showed exactly what that faith meant. Lord, please help me get just one more man found among the wounded, one more soldier dragged to the cliff edge, one more knot tied around a broken body, one more descent down the rope to waiting hands below, 75 times, through 12 hours of darkness and gunfire and prayer. The soldiers who mocked Desmond Doss would spend the rest of their lives honoring his memory. Captain Jack Glover, who tried to have him discharged, would testify to his bravery. The army that tried to remove him for mental unfitness would hang the Medal of Honor around his neck and call him one of the bravest men they had ever known. Because in the end, it was not the men with guns who held Hacksaw Ridge through that terrible night. It was one man with a rope and a prayer and the unshakable conviction that every life was worth saving. May 5th, 1945, shortly after dawn, the Maeda Escarpment, Okinawa. Private First Class Desmond Doss lies flat on his stomach at the edge of a 400-foot cliff. Behind him, 75 wounded soldiers wait to be saved. He has no weapon. He has only his hands and his courage, and those words that echo through the smoke and fire of that terrible night. Lord, please help me get just one more. And one more comes.